Well, good morning once again, and thanks for joining us for our business community support discussion that we have right here on Facebook and on YouTube. And we're going to dive right into it today, as we've got just a ton of great information that we are happy to share. And so joining us once again today is Cheryl O'Hearn with Spin Market and Digital, and also Kimberly Tiefenthaler from the SBDC, Chris Patrick from Main Street Fort Dodge, and in a moment we'll be joining Stu Cochrane as well, who's going to give us all sorts of fantastic legal advice on making sure that we reduce our liabilities as much as we possibly can in the new COVID era. So kind of excited about all of that. And Cheryl, I think you always do such a great job on providing us with slide information, and I think you've done that once again today. So I want to talk a little bit about the first slide that you've put together here. And if I can bring that up for everybody here, I'll try to get that done. Can you walk us through kind of what we've got going on here on this slide? Because there looks to be just a ton of really good information.
There really is. This came across my feed the other day, and as you can tell, it goes by state, and of course we pulled up the state of Iowa, and what it's showing is traffic as far as foot traffic and a variety of other data sources on here to show how we've progressed since February 1st through the COVID-19. If you look up in the right-hand corner, you can go and click in a date, and of course we're showing the latest on this is June 12th. So that's what's showing up right now, and it's about a week behind. And it shows on each of these, if you go into each of the different industries, you can click it, and it will show you how the traffic is improving, declining, how it rates with 2019. Just a lot of really good information in it. So it shows you what businesses are picking up, what ones are still lacking in certain industries and certain sectors, and shows it by week. And it's been very interesting to watch it since February 1st, because when you go to the February 1st one, on the right-hand corner, when it says recovery speed, it just has a big stop sign, and showing that basically everything was already stopping in February, which in Iowa, that wasn't quite true, but in other parts of the United States it was. So it's a really good information. It's free. There below there, it says click here to go to live updates, and you can go in and watch, or go in and pull that information up as well and see the different industries and where they're at.
So it's a little bit small on my screen. Cheryl, what's the good news? I mean, obviously, when we go in here, we can see all the data for ourselves, but what are the industries that are performing well in Iowa? Where's the things that we can look at and sort of have a little cheering moment?
Well, you can right away, you can see if it's green, if it's the green color, then those are the ones that are doing the best, of course. So if it's, that can give you on the barometer in that way. What I think is interesting is, I believe at the very bottom, isn't that, and I can't even see it very well on the screen here, but I think at the very bottom on the right-hand side, the red one is restaurants. Is that it? Oh, anyway, so there is, you can pull that up, and when you pull the screen up, and if we had it live and not just a screenshot here, you can see each of the different areas and how it's changed by day even, and then how it was set up or how it was going in 2019. Recovery speed for Iowa right now is on the fast end. The state of our industry is on the warm end, and the most recovered industries in Iowa, you can see that those are the green ones at the bottom, and then the red ones, of course, are not. And the most rapidly recovering industries in Iowa are listed green and then down as well. So lot of information. It takes a little bit to go through it and look at it, but it's just, if you have time to look at this and go back to a week before and see the changes on it, it's encouraging. I think that's something that we need to pass on to our businesses. It may not be as encouraging in your situation, but when you look at the whole scope of it in the state of Iowa, and then you compare it to the other states in the United States, it really shows that we're farther ahead in a lot of ways. I know, we get enough bad news about the cases coming up, but people are starting to go out and are starting to shop and buy and traffic and that type of thing. So,
well, that's been my experience, albeit mostly anecdotal, is that, I have seen just a huge increase in the last couple of weeks of people traveling, people getting out there and, doing their regular summer activities. We've seen baseball resume. Matter of fact, last night I was at a baseball game, right? I mean, those things are starting to happen again. Chris, are you seeing the same thing kind of from the business perspective, where many businesses are beginning to open their doors and resume at least somewhat a more business as normal situation?
We really are. I think most of the businesses, especially retail in the downtown, are open in some capacity. Several of them are back to regular hours. And Chris Walker from the Walker Bike Shop across the street from our office, I mean, he cannot keep enough bikes in stock. I mean, people really are, ready to get out and do summer activities. They know that, they want to be outside. So he has been super busy. So he's one of those businesses like the Dairyette that have actually prospered during this time instead of seeing his sales slow down, which is good. The Fort Dodge Coin and Stamp store is back open. Wicker's Jewelry is open at regular hours now. And the Real Deals that is owned by Morgan Fitzgerald, she has reopened regular hours now too, along with several others I mentioned a couple weeks ago. So we are seeing somewhat of a pickup. Our restaurant industry in the downtown is still relatively slow, seeing more of those pickup and delivery or curbside service than actual dine-in. But they're hoping that by September, they're going to be back up to about 60 to 70%.
Great. Okay, well, that makes a really good transition as we bring in Stu Cochrane with Johnson, Kramer, Mulholland, Cochrane and Cochrane, right? And we just want to invite Stu in and thank him for joining us, because there's a lot of good information as we start talking about all the different nuances that go with opening a business and staying in business during a time like this. There's a lot of questions out there. Stu, thanks for joining us.
No, you're welcome. Pleasure to have you all with me.
Yeah, well, I know there's probably just a ton of businesses that are calling your office on a regular basis and asking questions about liabilities. So can you walk us through some quick generalities of, hey, if somebody comes into my business and God forbid contract COVID-19 through something that happens here, do I have liability?
Yeah, great question. We've kind of brainstormed that as attorneys over the last few months, and I'm going to talk to you about some legislation here in a second. But generally, the consensus right now is that while there may be some creative claims that get filed, we generally believe that claimants are not going to be successful in trying to make claims against organizations that somehow they've contracted coronavirus, either in the scope of their employment or just incidentally by walking into a business. And it really comes down, Jed, to a question of causation. The science is just such that nobody really knows how you contract coronavirus. You could talk to 10 different people and you might get 10 different answers on, are you more likely to get it through air droplets? Are you more likely to get it from touching a surface? Well, the problem that presents for individuals who have contracted coronavirus is it makes it very difficult for them to pinpoint that, hey, I got it here or I got it there. I walked into a restaurant and 2 days later I had symptoms. The problem for those claims is it's difficult to say that they contracted it at a restaurant as opposed to Did I get it by walking into Walmart? Did I get it by having a conversation with somebody on the street, or a number of other ways? So because of that, the causation is a big element in the law. I mean, to make a claim, you have to prove causation. In other words, you have to be able to link the conduct with the illness, in this case, coronavirus. How did you get it? Well, if you can't medically prove that you got it from one source or another, it's very, very difficult to bring a claim. Now, that doesn't mean that you aren't going to see some claims get filed. Everybody asks, well, how about work comp? I mean, are we going to see a big increase in work comp claims where people claim, hey, I had to have gotten it at work. There's 2 other people at work that tested positive. Now I've tested positive. I think this is a work comp claim. Again, trying to prove that the contracting it arose out of the scope of employment is really challenging, just because I really think it's going to be difficult for a healthcare provider to pinpoint exactly how you contracted the virus. So for all those reasons, we really think it's going to be an uphill battle for people that want to make claims. Then let's go to the legislation that's pending in the Iowa House. The House is moving through a bill that provides immunity to restaurants and businesses, and how that legislation will ultimately shake out is still a little bit unclear, but I think it's going to get passed. I think within the next week or 2, we're going to see the House Senate ratify that. I think it's going to go to the governor. I think the governor is going to endorse that also. If that happens, that will provide immunity. I think there's been a lot of talk about if businesses are going to be successful, if they're going to come back and be vibrant, we need to make sure that they're not exposed to all these lawsuits that might arise. So I think just to avoid the possibility that there's going to be claims out there, it looks like this legislation is going to take care of that. So I really think in the next couple of weeks that'll get cleared up. And when that does, businesses are going to feel much more confident about doing business and opening up, serving their customers without fear that they're exposing themselves to some sort of claim.
There's a lot of,
in a nutshell.
So there's a lot of regulations out there when we talk about, maybe opening up to full capacity, but still requiring social distancing and things like that. Where does the business's liability land on ensuring that they've made sure that they've followed all of those regulations? Are they going to find themselves in a situation where, though there may be some immunity, that maybe that immunity gets eroded if they have, demonstrated negligence in following some of the regulations that have been set forth?
Yeah, great question. We've actually been exploring that with clients a lot lately. The difficulty, again, is which regulations and which guidelines do you follow? I mean, there's so many. You can turn to the CDC, you can turn to public health, you can turn to industrial guidelines, but they're not all the same. I mean, some I know from just watching a high school softball game the other day and talking to people that turned out, while there are efforts to social distance, that varies. It varies between venue, it varies between business. So because those are guidelines only, and technically they're not legal mandates, I mean, everybody tells you to be smart, to use, good social distance habits, things like that. But you can walk into a number of different businesses and you see just a variety of different approaches being taken. So I don't think you're going to see those negligence claims because these are guidelines. These aren't legal mandates. They're very difficult to enforce. So while everybody is trying to do the best job they can and being smart, making good decisions, I just don't think businesses are going to be exposed to claims that they've done something and they've breached some particular protocol, because it is so difficult to know which protocol do you follow right now.
Yeah, great. So, I mean, what I'm hearing from you, and correct me if this is an incorrect summation, but it sounds like business owners really need to focus on trying to make their business successful right now. Try to follow the guidelines as best you can and keep your customers and employees safe, but don't be afraid and try to make your business work.
And that's what all this legislation's about. I think this legislation is really going to be a big deal. When this gets passed, I think people are going to read it. and they're going to feel much more confident about running their organizations without fear that they're going to be exposing themselves to all kinds of claims. And I know there's groups out there that feel that the legislation goes too far, and it kind of depends on which side of the spectrum you're on. But I think if we're going to come back and businesses are really going to feel confident and they're going to do what they can to take care of their customers in a smart and wise way, they really need the assurance that they're not going to be exposed to liability. And I really think that's the landscape we're looking at. I think businesses are going to feel really good in a couple of weeks. The biggest challenge that we encounter right now in talking with clients is more than the liability issue. It really is managing their workforce. I mean, there's real challenges because of the anxiety out there. There are a lot of organizations that are just struggling to maintain enough labor. So some of the pitfalls in getting up and back into business full speed ahead has been making sure that they've got employees who are comfortable, who are willing to return to work those full schedules without a lot of fear and anxiety. So a lot of employers are spending a lot of time trying to work through anxiety issues with employees. And you compound that with a complication with Iowa workforce right now. It's challenging. I mean, Iowa workforce has really been under the gun in trying to consistently handle thousands of claims. Some of those claims, when they streamline, in fact, they're all being streamlined, but as people make those claims online, they're filling out those forms differently. And employers are really faced with a challenge of which of these claims do they choose to participate in, which of these claims do they not choose to participate in. And it really ends up with inconsistent results. When you get inconsistent results, there's misinformation out there for employees. A lot of employees are still choosing not to work. I shouldn't say a lot, but some employees are choosing not to work because they're not comfortable with the work environment. And then that puts the employer in a position where, what do I do with folks who just don't want to work because of fear and anxiety? Do we allow them the time off to gain back that confidence to return to work, or do I need to make some changes to increase my workforce so that I'm back in business? You talk to a lot of businesses, they will tell you that the biggest challenge getting up and back in action is just making sure that they've got enough staff to serve all the people they want to serve. So that's part of the challenge, is just trying to navigate through some of those employee issues.
Got it. Kimberly, I want to bring you in on this conversation as a business owner yourself. I'm sure that these are things that you've thought about and had questions about yourself. Having that liability in this legislation possibly go through very soon, what does that do to a business owner, and what sort of confidence does that give you moving forward?
Well, the protection certainly helps. That's for sure. And excuse me, business owners need to be able to know that they can be confident moving forward and do everything they can do. Kind of exactly like Stu said. It's not law. So do everything you can do to protect yourself, your employees, and your customers. And really be out front with what you're doing. Make that part of your marketing. Make it, very public and forward facing what you're doing to protect your business, your customers, and your employees. But to what Stu said, the workforce piece of it is an issue. And I've mentioned this before, and Kim and I, my husband has the same name I do. So Kim and I have experienced that in our own business, and it is frustrating. And I think Iowa workforce is definitely, just drowning in trying to work their way through everything that has been thrown at them during this time period. And so it's tough all the way around, really.
Right. Chris, you deal with a lot of our downtown businesses, and I know that, dealing with employee issues is probably a big piece of what they're dealing with right now. Is this something that you've been finding as well, that they're looking at going, okay, how do I deal with the employee issues? Do I bring people back? Do I unfortunately look at needing to let people go? And do they have questions surrounding that as well?
Well, I definitely think they do. I see that more in the service end of the industry in the downtown rather than the retail, simply because so many of the retail businesses are, 2 and 3 employee businesses. So I think we've been pretty lucky that in the downtown we haven't had the extreme that you're going to see in larger communities or in Fort Dodge as a whole. But I am seeing that a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, well, Stu, I really appreciate you taking a few minutes and coming on with us and talking about all of these issues that I know are definitely on the forefront of a lot of business owners' minds. And I think, for me and many others, you probably relieved some of those fears just a little bit. But if anybody has, very specific questions and they need to get legal advice, how can they get a hold of you?
Well, they can certainly find us online in the Johnson Law Firm, or my number's out there. For good or bad. So it's easy to find. I'm either online or in the phone book. If they can Google employment work, and I think I usually come up there too. So people are not seeming to have trouble finding me when they need to.
I found you.
All right, Stu, thank you very much.
All right. Thank you all.
Yeah, thank you.
So good to get Stu's input on all of this information, because it's just a scary time for a lot of business owners, and you got to wonder, hey, do I have liability? Am I going to get sued and lose everything that I've invested in this? And so Stu's perspective is just really fantastic to hear. I want to move on and talk about the EIDL program. We haven't had a lot of updates coming up with this in the last few weeks, but some information here on the EIDL program as well. And Kimberly, can you kind of walk us through what we're looking at here?
Yeah, you bet. And I'm so sorry. My throat is not good this morning. But the EIDL is now open again to businesses. It has been open to ag-related businesses for quite some time, but now it's open in general. So for those who did not apply during the first round time frame that since it was launched in Iowa, can now do so. So again, it's the 3.75% interest rate, 30-year term, no penalty for prepayment. And there is that advance component to this that is based on the number of employees you have. So if you have 2 employees, you might be eligible to get maybe $1,000 or $2,000. So that is an advance up to $10,000, and it is a grant that will not need to be repaid. And you don't necessarily have to get the loan to get the advance, but you do need to apply, and you need to make sure you click the box that says that you would like to have the advance. And I just took a screenshot of the opening screen, the first screen that you'll see when you go into SBA.gov for the EIDL application. And that's just the top part of it, but it's very easy to go through, to step through. If you have any questions, please give us a call. This is something that you don't go to your lender for. It is directly that you apply for it on SBA.gov.
Okay, great. So let's move right into the new PPP law. Some information coming out on that, and it's actually making things a little bit easier for business owners to make sure that they're compliant, and just a little bit loosening, I guess, of some of these regulations.
Right. So yes, so we've been waiting for some things to come through, and finally they did. And so the forgiveness period has gone from 8 weeks now to 24 weeks. I will say that if you applied for the PPP early on, and it can be up to your lender whether or not they want to redo some of those loan documents to extend you from the 8 weeks to the 24 weeks. So there's a little bit of, you need to have a conversation with your lender, and some of us have already had to do that. For those of us who applied really early, but still, great news. The restaurants, there's a lot of different businesses who really needed this time period to lengthen to make sense to even use the PPP in their business. It also lowered the 75% spent on payroll, that requirement, it lowered that to 60%. So that kind of eases up that as well and makes that a little easier for businesses. And, for certain types of businesses, that's no issue at all, depending on the type of business that you have. But this certainly has relaxed that piece of it and made it easier for a lot of businesses to obtain those requirements. So it also delays employer payroll tax payments through the end of 2020. So I'm not going to go in depth on this. If you want more information about that, you do need to apply for that. But that is something that, I just wanted to make sure people know about, that is out there. And, you really need to be, of course, your own best advocate for your business, and make sure that you understand all these things and changes very clearly about all these programs. And really the only way to do that is, call your lender, call the SBDC, myself, and we'll dive into it for you and make sure that we get a firm answer for you on any one of these pieces. And it also exempts borrowers from the full-time employee loan forgiveness reduction if you have employees that are unable to return at the same level, if your business isn't at the same activity, that sort of thing. So it loosened that up too, because it became very apparent that businesses weren't able to return to at the same capacity for one reason or another. And as Stu touched on, workforce has been part of it, just the confidence and that sort of thing. So, but yes, this was very good news this week. A lot came at us this week, and it's really good news for business owners. I think maybe some lenders are like, they get to deal with this even longer, maybe, or more in depth. But we certainly appreciate, again, we've said it before, we'll say it again, all of our community banks who've really done a fantastic job of digging into this and doing the best they can for our businesses.
Kimberly, when it says, your level of business has been unable to return to the same level as prior to February 15th, as of when? Is that saying that as of now, at the end of your 8-week period, at the end of your 24-week period, as of when would that be referring to?
Well, that's a great question. I think it's talking about during that time of forgiveness, that 8-week or 24-week, whichever you're in. But we could certainly explore that a little bit deeper.
Great.
So
okay, and talk to us about the new easy forgiveness application that we're looking at here. And this is a really big deal because while applying for the PPP seemed relatively easy, the full form on the forgiveness was a bit more onerous.
Right. Yes. And so if you read carefully here, and I had to do as well, make sure that I'm reading things through. But if you're self-employed and have no employees, if you did not reduce salaries or wages of your employees by more than 25% and did not reduce the number or hours of your employees, you experienced reductions in business activity as a result of health directives related to COVID-19, did not reduce the salaries or wages of your employees by more than 25%. So looking at those three things, if your businesses that don't meet one of these requirements will still need to complete the full forgiveness application. So, but if you do meet one of those requirements, then you can go through the easy forgiveness application, which I think is exactly just that. It's very easy and very streamlined, and I don't think, it's not near the work that I think that, for instance, I don't think this is going to help my business out particularly, but nonetheless, it will help a lot of businesses. So that is good news again. Sure.
Okay, and then the SBA scheduled some webinars. Talk us through what information is going to be shared here, and who should think about attending these.
Right. So I think anyone and everyone. I certainly am going to be tuning in myself just to make sure I'm always on the same page as what's coming down, and it's just good to hear it from somebody that works directly with on the federal level. So this is going to be just information concerning the PPP changes that have taken place. And I think it's going to be good to hear the pieces of some of the things that we're talking about. Well, they'll go more in depth on that. So opportunities, there's 3 opportunities to hop on one of these webinars. These are on our North Central Iowa SBDC Facebook page as well. So again, no pre-registration is not required. You just can hop on and listen in.
Got it. Okay, so a lot of businesses are, working through this reopening procedure, and I just kind of want to talk through, what goes through our business owners' minds as they work back up to a more full caseload. Chris, can you tell us, what are business owners experiencing right now? What's the latest on getting things opened, and what questions are businesses experiencing right now?
I think the biggest question is, they're really concerned about making sure that they have as many of those safety measures in place as possible. They're all in their own way doing social distancing. Most of them are not requiring masks in their store, but they are asking people to wear a mask if possible. And I think that is probably the biggest, challenge, because you're either on one end of that spectrum or the other. Some of the other questions that people have are the things that Stu talked about this morning with the liability issue. Main Street Iowa and Iowa Economic Development Authority, in partnership with Downtown Partners, have created a consumer survey that we will be rolling out July 7th. These surveys are going to be streamlined to each of the 54 communities, Main Street communities here in the state of Iowa. And I know, I think everybody groans when they hear another survey, but this is a consumer confidence survey. And we're hoping that with the information that we collected from our business surveys and then being able to compare it to the consumer confidence, we'll be able to better help those businesses bring those consumers back into their stores. Great.
Cheryl, I want to talk to you for a second about some of the medical community. I know you've been working pretty furiously with a number of dentists, and many of those are now open, seeing patients, maybe not as business as usual, but certainly at least seeing patients once again. What are your clients experiencing right now as they go through the reopening procedure? Where's their pain right now?
Well, on the dental industry end, they are booked solid. Every client that I have does not have any openings before October. And they have not seen a drop at all of patients coming in. They've been very receptive, and they're back to normal. As far as patient goes, there's some difficulties with trying to operate and work as a dentist with all the PPE that they have to wear, which has also been interesting because last week we had 3 clients contact me that purchased clinics that were managed or were owned by older dentists, and they just decided enough's enough. It's time for me to retire. And in 1 week I had 3. So that was really interesting, and it's fast. It's like Friday I'm closing, and by Monday or Tuesday, they've already contacted somebody that they know would be interested in buying them, and they've already bought them. I had one dental client that actually had 2 clinics contact him and say that they were closing, and they were just referring all their patients to that. That was interesting as well. So we're seeing that a lot out there.
Yeah, so we just crossed the 3-month mark of my business here at Alpha Media being working remotely. So we just crossed the 3-month threshold mark, and definitely interesting as we're beginning to open our doors slowly to the world once again, but have gone through a number of different procedures and policies to make sure that we keep both our employees and any of our clients and just the community safe as they come through the door. But it's definitely something that you think about And then many of the things that we've talked with our clients about and still finding to be a pain point is a number of our folks are just still trying to get up to speed on the digital aspect of their business. A lot of businesses are still saying, "Oh my gosh, I really should have had this website up and running months ago. I really should have had a mobile-friendly website months ago. I really should have been able to do e-commerce months ago." And you know what? Those things take a lot of time to get up to speed. But Cheryl, it's something that I would say even now is going to be more important than ever moving forward.
Very much so. From whether you're trying to sell your products and services or you're recruiting. We have some interns in here, and one of our little projects that we do is I have them just randomly pull up websites and give a critique. Would you work there? Would you buy their products there? And it's amazing to listen to them out there and their comments. First impression, that's what counts. Your digital marketing is your front door. I think businesses need to realize that a lot of the workforce is not going back to a brick and mortar workplace. Maybe not. I wouldn't say that they're never going back, but some of them are being told that they won't go back until sometime in 2021. That makes a whole different situation. And I think KCCI did a program on it today or yesterday on the Skywalk in downtown and how the businesses there are not doing real well because of the workforce not coming back. And it's digital. That's where they're going to be spending more time digital. You're right. Everybody needs to be digital, and our business owners, whether you're for profit, nonprofit, your government, or whatever, don't be afraid of the digital. It is there. You do need to have some expertise in putting it together, but it's the way we're going. And like Stu said, they Google him too. Even an attorney, they Google him.
Yep, they sure do. And there's a bunch of great tools that Cheryl, I know you can walk folks through, and we can help walk people through. And I know Chris has been working with a number of businesses on getting digital things up to speed as well. And I'm sort of springing this on you guys. I know I'm doing that, but there's something I want to talk about that I think is affecting local businesses, and I think it's important to talk about right now. With the state of our country right now being just in so much discussion of rights and personal rights, and we have protests and riots going on throughout the country. I've seen a number of local businesses who have had supply chain issues and have been struggling to get even products into their store. And Chris, I see you smiling a little bit, so maybe you know kind of what I'm talking about here. But is that something that you're seeing with businesses as well, with there being some supply chain issues currently?
Well, since I was smiling, I'll go first. Yes, we actually in the downtown have had that in the clothing retail industry, even in Dungeons and Dodgers with Ethan's gaming supplies. I mean, there's a supply chain issue. He's had to drop one line of gaming supplies for his consumers until that gets back up on speed. So we are really impacted in the downtown, and even for the food industry and some of that higher quality food products they're finding it a hard time to get those too. So definitely the downtown has been impacted by that supply chain issue. And sometimes it's inequality supplies, but mainly it's just that those suppliers are out of product.
Yeah. And that's something that I've been seeing as well with some of my clients where, it could be because the plant is shut down because of COVID. It might also be because their supply trucks simply don't feel safe traveling. And so I've seen both of those issues, which are simply causing supply chain issues and definitely some pain. It's really tough to keep your business doors open when you have nothing on the shelves. So definitely something that I think folks are dealing with right now.
Well, and then not only on the supply end, it's even getting the deliveries. I'm sure everybody has something that you were used to next day or 2 days can take over a week now very easily. out there, and that's frustrating too.
Yep, I definitely think that's the case. Okay, well, we always like to share these links with folks. These links are links that we know that you can trust. If you have questions about anything that we've talked about here today, you can feel free to follow any of these links to find out some really good and trustworthy information. In addition to that, if you have any questions that you'd like to ask any of us directly, you're welcome to ask any of us directly any of those questions. Or, of course, if you want to have a question answered on one of our upcoming meetings, you can do that as well. Simply send that to info@mainstreetfd.org. That's probably the best way to get us that information. I think just a lot of really good information today, and a big thank you to Stu for joining us on our call today and sharing some of that information about business liability and what's really out there for businesses and the pending legislation. So I think a great call today and some great information.
I would agree.
Yep. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, thank you.
All right. Thanks, guys. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.